Hello and welcome to another edition of the Cats Whiskers TV podcast. My name is Jono Bullard. We've got a very special edition for you today as we welcome hockey rock band the Zambonis to the show. We'll also be joined by Rick Strang, who is bidding to get the band into the UK charts with their single Hockey Monkey, and they'll be here to tell us all about it. We'll be welcoming Paul Balm back to the podcast for 1 week only, as unfortunately Andy can't make it, and Aaron will be joining us as always. Patrick Smyth from the A View from the Bridge podcast will be joining as well to look ahead to the double-header weekend against the Belfast Giants at the NIC. And Ryan Finnerty also joined us after Panthers game against Braehead on Sunday to give his reaction after the game. But first, let's get the boys in. So it's time to say good evening to Aaron Lord.
Hello, good evening.
And also good evening on a comeback for 1 week only as Andy can't join us. I'm delighted to welcome back Mr. Paul Balm.
Yep, back by absolutely no popular demand at all. Good evening, everyone.
Well, we're going to start off by looking at a quite excellent result for the Panthers on Friday night, a 4-0 victory against the Belfast Giants in Belfast. 2 goals for Guillaume Doucet, a goal for Colby Cohen on his debut, and then finished off by Robert Farmer towards the end. Guys, what a fantastic victory!
Yeah, an absolutely amazing result. Obviously, going over to Belfast is never easy. They're obviously another title challenger, but I just thought apart from you could possibly say the first 5 minutes where Belfast came out the traps, I would say a little bit quicker than us. I would say apart from that 5 minutes, I thought we totally dominated the game and made them look very poor, and we were very, very good. And that just backs it up with a shutout as well for K-Wall. So a near-on perfect performance for me from the Panthers, up there with the Boxing Day performance that we put in Sheffield. So very, very pleasing.
Paul, as usually one who isn't too confident at times.
You remembered, bless you.
How did you feel about going into that game? Was it a game where you expected such an emphatic victory?
No. I thought we possibly got a chance. Belfast's form's been as erratic at times as ours has. But to go in there, and I never expected in my wildest dreams to come out with a 4-0 win. No,
I mean there were so many great performances. I mean, no, for me from watching the webcast, nobody had a bad game for the Panthers, but there were so many standout performances. And once again, particularly Robert Farmer stood out with a goal and 3 assists. And we've said it so many times over the past few podcasts, but he's just getting better and better and better.
It's becoming the Robert Farmer show, this is, isn't it, really? But I've said on previous weeks, when he performs like he is doing at the moment, it's very hard not to talk about him. I fully agree with what you said before that. I don't think anybody had a bad game. It was a full-on team performance with 4 great goals for me. So Farmer's a big part of that. But I just think as a team now, and I think with the signings of Doucet and obviously Cohen coming back, it's just moulded us into a better team and a more rounded team that's got threats kind of all over the ice. So it's just very pleasing at the moment, and long may it continue.
Paul, obviously Guillaume Doucet has absolutely
Guillaume
Doucet has really set the team on fire since he came in. He's scoring goals, he's scoring points. Seems to have really galvanised us, and we look a much, much stronger team since he came in.
Yeah, I mean, he in a way is what a lot of people have been, including myself, probably have been sort of saying we need this season. Is that sort of he's good. He knows where the goal is. Was it 10 points in 6 games proves that, but he's not a player in, say, the David Alexandre Beauregard mould who would just drift into the right place at the right time. You watch Doucet; he's hungry for the puck all the time. He's always going for it. He's hustling to try and get it. I mean, I know we'll touch on the game against Braehead in a couple of minutes. But there were times in that when he was getting to pucks that he really shouldn't have got to. The goal, that fifth goal against Coventry, where he where he just burned past the defenseman for pace and then cut in and beat Stewart. And it's stuff like that, I think, that we've been missing.
Aaron, Colby Cohen came in for his second debut for the Panthers after appearing in the Champions Hockey League, and he looked a completely different player, was so calm at the back.
Yep, pretty much faultless, and that's an addition to what is already a very strong D, so very, very happy that he's back. He adds, obviously, that offensive on the blue line, on the power play, which we've seen this weekend, and especially, a lot has been said about the pressure that Cody Wild's been under, and especially on that power play. But I just think the main thing for that is he's very calm on the puck, like you said. He seems very happy that he's back in Nottingham, and it just makes our D so much stronger. But like I've just said, it was already a strong D in the first place, and it's been backed up again by 100% penalty kill this weekend over the two games. So you said, Jono, at the start of the season, didn't you, really, that defence wins championships?
I did indeed.
I don't think it was Jono who said that first.
Oh, was it not? Well, all right, he stole it off somebody then. You have to say that our D, 90% of the time has been faultless. So if we are to have a chance, then the D has played a massive part in that, and Cohen makes it stronger for the stretch.
Another incident I just want to bring up from the Belfast game was, of course, towards the end, where Adam Keefe dropped the gloves with Greg Jacina and got a 2+10 instigator penalty for his trouble. Born out of pure frustration, do you reckon?
Yes, born out of pure frustration. Been looking for it for most of the match. He wasn't really getting any takers. I remember seeing him. He was after Smyth at some time when he was trying to wind up K-Wall, and at the end of the day, Juice was just there, and I think you have to give credit to Juice for not backing down in that situation. But I think for me, that key fight was to release a bit of frustration in his own body and properly give the Belfast fans something to cheer about, because it was pretty pointless regarding affecting the game, because the game was gone. But that's Adam Keefe, isn't it? He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's not afraid to drop the gloves. But it purely frustration. And if you listen to his interview after the game, you can see that as well in the words that he says. So it was. I don't think Juice actually let himself down, to be honest. I thought he put up a decent fight with.
He did do okay, actually.
Keefe against Jacina is not something that you'd want to see every week, is it? Let's be honest, from a Panthers point of view. But I thought he held his own and stuck up well.
Okay, we're going to move on to Sunday night. So after a day's rest, Panthers took on the league leaders, the Braehead Clan, at the NIC, coming out with a 6-3 victory. Goals for Higgins, who got 2, Doucette, who also got 2, Colby Cohen scoring once again, and also Chris Lawrence, who got on the score sheet. Braehead replies coming from Lee Salters, Neil Trim and Derek Rahal. I managed to get a few words with Braehead Clan coach Ryan Finnerty after the game. Joining me after Panthers' 6-3 victory over the Braehead Clan is Clan coach Ryan Finnerty. Finner, your thoughts on the 60 minutes?
It was a pretty frustrating game, I think, for us. Had a good start, scored first, and then we ended up taking a lot of penalties here tonight, and didn't get a lot of inches out there. But and at the end, they capitalized on their chances, and it was a 6-3 game.
You seem very frustrated in the second period, chatting to Michael Hicks a few times. Was it just the frustration of what was happening out on the ice?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a few situations we felt that changed the game. Obviously, Kavanagh goes in the corner and gets buried we felt from behind, and they come out and score. But you can't make excuses. I think last time Nottingham came, they blamed every ref in Scotland for the reason they left. So I guess they can call it even now. Frustrating night. We had some opportunities to get back in the game. I thought we every time we came and every mistake we made ended up in the back of our net.
You've been on a fantastic run recently, especially with league results, and I think this is your first defeat in 10, if I'm right. Even after tonight, you're going to be at least 3 points clear at the top. Do you still consider yourself favourites for the league title?
I don't know. We're not really even looking at the league title as more just taken care of week to week. I mean, obviously, it's everybody else seems to talk about it and every excuse on why we're up there and conference and yada yada. But we're just kind of enjoying it right now. It's been a good ride. Obviously, tonight, tonight's a glitch in the road for us. We didn't play great. Our special teams wasn't great, and we'll look at this as a bump in the road. We get these guys 2 more times, and we're happy about that. We're excited about that. So tonight wasn't our best showing, but we'll come back stronger. We always bounce back. That's one thing here is this group. Our bounce back is unbelievable. I mean, we'll get things corrected and head in the right direction come Tuesday morning. But tonight, we took a bit of a loss. Nottingham now close the gap up, and they're going to chase us right to the end, and so will Belfast, Sheffield, and Cardiff. So it should be exciting.
You mentioned there about other teams making excuses for where you are in the league, and a lot of people said it's because you play in a so-called easier conference. Feel that's fair?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie that obviously there's more depth in this conference, and games. When teams are built like they are this year. Last year Cardiff's a 9th place team, Coventry's a 9th place team this year. Maybe Fife, Dundee had better runs. I'm not going to say better teams, that maybe had better results. But at the end of the day, until these teams go in and sweep that other conference, I don't. It's one thing to tell us you're better than them, but if you can't go and beat the Gardner Conference, I can tell you how tough I am if I never have to fight. So, that's my view on it. But absolutely, yeah, there are 2 different conferences. Been around long enough. I'm not going to sit here and try to pull the wool over anybody's eye. But my one thing is until the top 4 teams go over there and sweep them, which isn't happening, then I don't. It's kind of a moot point to make a huge change in my eyes. That's the way I look at it. Until now, if Nottingham, Belfast, Sheffield, and Cardiff have gone down and won every game in Scotland and beat every Gardner team, I get it. But to just say we're better than them without the results, that's where I kind of disagree. But yeah, absolutely, there is 2 different conferences. There's 2 different groups. It is a lot tougher to come out of here as opposed to win and succeed out here now because Cardiff is so strong. Sheffield, Belfast, Nottingham are always going to be strong, but but for the whole. It's not like we chose it. We didn't choose it, so it's not like we chose to play there. So, for us, we kind of look at it as that Scottish proud. Well, you've got to beat these teams before you start telling everybody you're better than them. Until they start sweeping, then I don't think we have a problem.
Finner, thanks for your time as always. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, boys.
So the thoughts of clan coach Ryan Finnerty there. I must admit, I was quite surprised that he said. He sort of admitted that the Gardner Conference was more advantageous to them. I think he made a fair point about how, with the Erdart teams not sweeping the Gardner teams, why should it change?
But you mean why should it change? But why should they get rid of the conference?
Yeah.
Well, the conference is about money, and keeping Edinburgh playing Fife is always going to get more in than Edinburgh playing Cardiff. But saying the teams aren't sweeping them. Look at the standings. There's 1 team from their conference in the top half, 1 team from ours in the bottom half. That surely tells you something as well.
True. Aaron, Finner seemed pretty disappointed with the outcome of the game, but I have to say I was expecting more from Braehead, and I didn't really see what I would regard as a top of the table side.
Really?
I thought Cardiff looked a lot better when they played us a couple of weeks ago.
Well, then, are you saying that it's only because of the conference that Braehead are top?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I expected a bit more from Braehead. I expected a closer game. I expected a bigger test, and I personally didn't feel we got it.
I thought when they went 1-0 up, obviously through Salters, which you just knew was going to happen, that he was going to score, that they might have kicked on a little bit. But I think the fact that we, replied in that period, and I agree in some sense, but I think the major thing that I came away from that game thinking was that if they just concentrated on playing hockey, then they probably could have gave us a more tougher challenge. And you mentioned Cardiff. I'll say that again about the Cardiff game a few weeks ago. If they just stuck to playing hockey, then Cardiff probably would have beaten us that night. And I think this whole, toughness and players like Fitzgerald and, half of the Cardiff team and, Salters and Harper and all these players that, are physical players, they seem to take it to that extra step where it's actually not benefiting their team on that given night. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it benefits them on other nights, but when you talk about a Panthers team that has been criticised for not having toughness, not having this, Fitzgerald, Nickerson, Danny Bois when he was around kind of guy, aren't the results now showing that you don't actually need that? And I just thought they kind of, and as much as I like Finner and stuff, but it kind of resembles him as a player, that when they lose discipline, then they lose the game. And I just think that was a major factor in it for me. And I just thought we played very, very well, and the goals that we scored were very, very good goals. And again, I mentioned it earlier about the Belfast game, but the penalty kill once again was just unreal. And Finner, to be fair, did mention it, that if your specialty teams aren't working, then you struggle to win games. But I thought it was their discipline that let Braehead down personally.
Paul, we were talking after the game on Sunday, and you felt that Braehead perhaps shaded the first period, but then periods 2 and 3 were all Panthers. Again, sorry.
I thought the set. I thought we had to soak up a lot of pressure in the third period. But I'll let you continue now.
Yeah, but of course, again, a performance with some great individual performances. Again, Doucette with a couple of fine goals. Colby Cohen again, absolutely outstanding at the back in his home debut in the league, and also I thought Chris Higgins was back to the Chris Higgins we remember from Belfast last season.
Yeah, I thought all three of those scored, and it's had a good game, but. It's interesting talking about Colby Cohen and his shooting. He hadn't scored since 2010-11 season, something like that. So maybe he just likes the ice over here. I don't know, but you can single players out, but it's a team game. And I thought there were a couple of occasions, one of which I think led to Lawrence's goal, which was possibly one of about two things he did fairly well all games. He took the game really well, and he took the penalty that we scored the short-handed goal on. But but before we broke up the ice, fed it to Lawrence, who scored, there was a passage of play where they were pressuring us, and we had a couple of players laying the body down to stop the puck crossing the line, to help the goalkeeper, and playing as a team and defending as a team. And I think, as much as anything else, as much as Braehead's indiscipline, that's what helped us win the game.
Overall, do you think that put us in the title race? Do you think it puts pressure on Braehead?
Well, for me, we were never out of the title race, so it just makes it a little bit closer. It also... Obviously, I know Finner has come out and said that it doesn't, it won't really affect them, and they'll just go back to winning games up in their conference, sort of thing. But I think it just gives them a little jab, doesn't it, to say that we're still here, we can beat you on the night, and it also makes it knowledgeable for the rest of the Elite League that we're not kind of going away, and we are serious about challenging it. And at the end of the day, we beat second place team on Friday night, and then we went and beat the first place team on the Sunday. We scored 10 goals and we conceded 3. 100% penalty kill. That's a pretty near-on perfect weekend. So I think it just reinforces that we'll challenge for as long as it's possible. And like I've always said, let's hope we do that.
Okay. Moving on to look at some of the other results that took place around the Elite League over the weekend, and I suppose one of the biggest shocks was Sheffield 6-0 victory in Cardiff on Sunday night.
No, I think what was a bigger shock was that they managed to score at home the night before.
Yeah, they have certainly been struggling with that. But I say, I don't think anyone really expected that on Sunday in Cardiff.
Well, and you can get your cliche bells out now, everybody. It just goes to show that everybody can beat anybody on any given night, doesn't it?
God, you can tell he's back, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I've been storing them up for 2 months.
Of course, I mean, Sheffield with two new players and a new netminder thanks to a injury to Frank Doyle. But Eunice, as we was lovingly calling him over the weekend, he only conceded 1 in his first 2 games. That's a pretty reasonable start for him.
Very much so.
You can't get much better, can you?
Well,
no, exactly. And going into Cardiff, I know you've just talked about it, but that's a hell of a place to go, on your first weekend in the Elite League, isn't it? So I'm sure that opened his eyes a little bit, but I'm sure he walked out of the rink with a big smile on his face, and obviously that will give the Steelers a lot of confidence. But we'll see whether those signings can do it over the rest of the time that they're with them.
Of course, Belfast had a mixed weekend, losing to us, as we've already talked about, on Friday night. Then a victory over the Fife Flyers at the Odyssey on Saturday night before travelling to Fife on Sunday and losing 5-4 on penalty shots. Gloriously inconsistent, the Giants, but that's taking nothing away from Fife, which is a very good result for them. Well,
it's a difficult place to go, isn't it, Fife? We've had our problems playing up there, and with the way the crowd are, that there are going to teams who aren't going to fancy going in there. And on the flip side of the coin, Fife have got everybody in there behind them, haven't they?
True. Some of the others, of course, Sheffield, to mention them again, a goal 3 seconds from time to win the game against Coventry at the Motorpoint on Saturday. They are jammy sods at times, aren't they?
Yeah, but Jono, like I said to you Saturday, there'll be people coming out there saying scoring goals at that sort of time, that's the stuff of champions, that is.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
We'll see come April, won't we?
We certainly will. So, a quick look at the standings as they are. So, Braehead remain top on 53 points after 37 games. The Belfast Giants are in second place, 49 points after 37 games. Panthers third, also on 49 points, but having not won as many games in regulation. But they've only played 35 games, as have the Steelers for their 48 points in fourth. Devils also 48 points in fourth after 35, but again less regulation wins than the Steelers. 5 points separating the top 5. It is just extremely close.
It is very close indeed. I can remember back to when we had Owen Bradley on the podcast, which is probably a few months ago, and we were talking about would it be this close, at this period of the fixture list and this period of the season, and it seems that it is really going to be one of those where if the Clan don't walk away with it, which some people will think that might happen, but the other 4 it is nip and tuck, and every game is going to be important. And I know you're hearing that from the Panthers' point of view, that every game is, to quote Adam Keefe line, playoff hockey. It's every point picked up, and this is where if you pick up an extra point here to make it a 3-point weekend, not a 2-point weekend, that 1 point could turn out to be massive come the end of the season. So it's about how many points can you collect from now to the end of the season, and we'll see where that leads the standings. But I also think you've got to think about that in regards to the playoff as well, because that 4th, 5th kind of area is going to be very tight, and I can see a big team missing out at the playoffs this season. Obviously last year it was us, but I can really see it's going to be a tight scrap to get into the playoff weekend.
Paul, just looking at the sort of the bottom half of the table, and it's still quite close between Dundee, Coventry, Edinburgh, Hull and Fife. It still could be any two from those 5 that miss out on the playoff quarterfinals.
I honestly couldn't say right now who those 2 teams will be. In previous years you've looked, and there's usually been a couple that have stood out, but this year I couldn't pick it. I mean, if Dundee are probably in the worst situation because they are bottom, I think, still, don't look like, but especially those teams like Hull, like Fife, like Coventry, they're all beating each other as well, week in, week out. So that's going to be as close as the battle for second will be.
You still feel Braehead then?
I didn't mention them, did I? But yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Something else that I do want to talk about that happened this week. Premier Sports announcing that they were dropping a couple of games. A game that was scheduled for this Saturday in Fife was dropped for scheduling issues. And then another game on the 6th of February, Belfast against Cardiff, was dropped because of the league say-so. Guys, what did you make of that?
Yeah, well, obviously it's a bit of a strange one. You wouldn't imagine that to kind of happen, and from my knowledge, I don't think it's happened before. Obviously, you go on Twitter and there's several people telling you why that must have happened or whatever, or outside influences, shall we say, maybe have caused that. But look, until the league or we get an actual official statement from the league or Premier Sports saying why the swapping game, then people just carry on saying rumours, won't they? Really, I mean, I don't think there's anything malicious or whatever in it. It's probably just the most boringest of reasons that everybody, when they'll know, will go, oh right, okay, fair enough, and move on. So I don't see what the big deal is, to be honest.
Paul, of course, there was a big backlash on social media and everybody jumping to conclusions without knowing the facts. Do you think that was fair, or do you think that the league should really come out and clear it up by saying why it's been dropped?
I don't think it was fair, and it would help if the league did, but by the same token, that there probably is a perfectly reasonable an explanation behind it, but people don't want that, do they? They want to be able to, it seems to me at times, especially on things on social media, just be able to jump off the deep end and find somebody to blame. But it's like walking into a room halfway through a conversation. What you think they're talking about is never anywhere near, is always far more interesting than what they're actually talking about.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, thanks for the minutes, guys. Now we're going to move on to something completely different.
All the scientists are running around looking for the monkey, but he can't be found because he's down by the pond playing hockey with the kids. And all the mothers are running around looking for their children, but they can't be found because they're down by the pond playing hockey with the monkey.
So that was a snippet from the track Hockey Monkey by the Zambonis. The reason we played that is that Rick Strang, who you may remember used to be involved with the London Racers, has put a campaign online to try and get the track into the UK charts and try and promote British hockey a little bit more. I am delighted to say that Rick joins us now, along with Dave Schneider from the Zambonis. Hi, guys.
Yeah, hey, Jono.
Hi. So, Rick, I'll come to you first. What made you think of this idea?
It's one of those blinding moments that you have when you're not thinking of very much else. I'd had a big Sunday dinner, was watching TV, flicked over, and it was a bit of Rihanna on the TV. I'm thinking, I hate this stuff. And suddenly it came to me, I'm not playing hockey and I'm watching Rihanna on TV. I need to get something better on. I need to get a hockey song. Yeah, let's get a hockey song in the charts. And bang, there it was. So I started contacting people, getting hold of Facebook. And then I thought, hey, let's give the Zambonis a go. They might be big, massive stars. They might not respond to some weirdo guy from England, but we'll give it a go. And so I dropped the guys a line and they were up for it. So here we are.
Dave, what do you think when some weirdo guy from England contacted you about putting Hockey Monkey in the UK charts?
Well, first I checked my sex offenders app on my phone. And then seeing his face there, I said, oh, this kind of sounds interesting. I'll give him a ring. And no, it was great. We love anything, we weren't thinking when we wrote that song. So why, when a guy isn't really thinking for this idea, it's a perfect match. We want to play in the UK. We've been wanting to come over there. Mm-hmm. So when someone reached out to us, it was perfect.
Yeah. So, Rick, how's the campaign going so far?
Got to be honest with you, Jono, it's a slow first period. But we're feeling our way. We're trying to get hold of people. There's that British reserve, isn't there? We're all a bit reserved and quiet and stiff upper lip, and we don't get excited about stuff. I think if we'd launched this in California, it would have gone crazy by now. We'd have girls in bikinis and whatever, but it's all a bit quiet here. But it's a slow burn. I think by the second period, we'll be up and running. I think Cat's Whiskers getting this out there. It's building. The downloads will pick up. And hey, what's the worst that can happen? We've all had a bit of fun. We've made friends with the Zambonis. And as I say, if we can organise to get these guys over as well, I think we could have a great weekend in July. So look out, Sheffield.
Exactly. Dave, so you say it's an ambition to come over to the UK. How do you fancy Sheffield in the summer?
I think it's going to be great as long as there's a couple beers and some shepherd's pie. That's all we really require.
Yeah, so you'll get some hockey as well from the Forum All Stars tournament. So I think we tick all the boxes. Just very quickly, just give us a quick biog of the Zamboni. So I believe you've been going since 1991. So you're pretty well established.
That's true, but I have to tell you, the full circle would be going back to England. This band started in 1991 when we were in England, actually playing a Peel session with another band we had called the Junior. So we wanted to watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TV, and as you know, even today, probably, it's not an easy thing to do in England. I don't know about now, but back then it was very difficult. And there's a long story that goes along with it, but after all attempts failed, I said, let's just write some songs about hockey. And that's what we did. That night we wrote, in a girls' flat in London, we wrote 3 songs about hockey. And that's where the band started.
I say you had an album out. You only sing about hockey songs, and you've had some pretty good success. You from reading your website, you've been part of NHL All-Star games. You've had a theme song of a sitcom in North America. So you're a pretty big deal, really, aren't you?
We do all right. It's like we've tried to break up, but things always fall in our lap, so we can't break up. It's that kind of. So it's fun. We just have a good time, but we do love the sport, and we love making music. That's what we live to do. So that's it. I mean, it can't be. We've done a lot. We're working with the NHL again, writing there some commercials for them for the playoffs, and it's a non-stop, wonderful experience.
Oh, it's great to hear. So, Rick, what's the plan from now? What happens for the rest of the week?
Yeah, we crack on. I'll be banging away on Facebook and on the hockey forums and ringing up everybody I know. I'm bugging people and hanging out around people's houses, getting them to buy Hockey Monkey. So anybody listening to this, get on your download site, download Hockey Monkey by the Zambonis, get a couple of copies, give a gift to someone who doesn't know about hockey. Let's get it in the charts. It's an underground sport here, but it's a big sport, bigger than people think. Actually, hockey in this country gets bigger crowds than county cricket. Who would have thought that in England? It's the biggest indoor sport in the country, and yet you ask people about ice hockey in England, you wouldn't think it exists. So this is a real opportunity. I know, as I say, the British Reserve means we don't necessarily rush out there, but it's something you can do in the quiet of your own home. We won't go any further as to what else you're doing in the quiet of your own home on your laptop, but take a minute out, get onto iTunes, get onto Amazon, get onto where it is, download Hockey Monkey. It's like 99 pence out of your life. You can do it, and let's put hockey in the charts.
Absolutely. Dave, were you aware that hockey was such? I know you did the video where you said it was an underground sport, which I suppose it is, but it is quite popular. Was you aware of its popularity in the UK?
I only knew of it when guys. I worked for the AHL. I'm an on-ice MC. I stopped. I did it for 12 years for the New York Islanders farm team.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys, that's one league beneath the NHL.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys would end up, over in Europe, in your league. So I knew quite a bunch of guys that went over and played in that league. I wish I knew Theo Fleury when he went over.
Yeah, of course, he played for Belfast, I think 2005-2006 season, and ended up winning the league. But it was quite a big deal when he came over, of course.
Hey, Dave, do you know a guy called Eric Cairns who's working through the Islanders at the moment?
Sure, I know.
Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. He came over and played for the Racers, and I went over and stayed with him when he was down at Florida Panthers. So he's a good guy. We used to roughhouse on the back of the bus. Boy, did I regret that. The guy's got hands like a bear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for about 3 years, we ate lunch at the same deli almost every day.
Yeah.
He would get chicken parm, and I'd get a light salad, but I weigh 300 pounds, and he weighs whatever he does.
Yeah, we all have good memories of Eric Cairns being here. If you ever get a chance to look at the YouTube video of Eric Cairns in Coventry, it's a cracker. For anybody listening who's not seen that, get on YouTube and have a look at that because it is fantastic.
Isn't it amazing that the enforcers are the nicest guys? It's pretty strange.
Yeah, it always is. I've always found that. I don't even know a guy, Barry Nykar, who used to play over here for Nottingham Panthers, was a bit of a meathead on the ice, but one of the nicest guys you could ever wish to meet off it.
Yeah, on our most recent record, I wrote a song about a guy named Eric Goddard. Did he ever come over to you guys or no?
He's not a guy I've heard of, to be honest.
He won the Stanley Cup with the Panthers, but with the Penguins. But wild ride and a great guy.
Okay, well, I can say it's been fascinating talking to you both. I think it's a great initiative. I really hope it's successful. I downloaded it last night, so
good man.
And I hope we hear a lot more from the Zambonis over in the UK. Dave, thank you very, very much for taking the time out to join us.
Thank you, Jono. Long live the Specials, my favorite band from England.
Oh, Paul, who does the podcast, he will like you very much for that. He's a big fan of the Specials. Rick, as always, great to talk to you.
Thanks, buddy. See you on the ice soon.
You will.
Thanks, Rick. Rick, keep on the mission, Rick. Keep on the mission.
Yeah. We're on it, mate. Zambonis.
Yeah. Right.
We started with every band. We started with the Aardvarks and worked our way, and we ended up with the Zambonis. So there you go.
All right. Screw the Aardvarks. Hey, don't forget, www.thezambonis.com. Come say hi. If you come to America, we'll buy you a crappy beer.
And, of course, at the Zambonis on Twitter as well. We shall put the links to download Hockey Monkey in our Spreaker notes and the Cat's Whiskers website. So get on there and get downloading. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.
I want my thumb cramping from retweeters.
So you heard the man. Get on Twitter. We're going to look ahead to Panthers' upcoming games. A game against Coventry tomorrow night, Wednesday night, at the Skydome Arena with a 7:30 face-off. And I suppose the word that seems to follow Panthers around, as it has for the last 2 seasons, is injuries.
It does, doesn't it? I really don't know what we've done. It seems like every time we get 2 points, it's at the cost of another player. It's a good job we've brought the likes of Cohen and Doucette in, or we'd have nobody left.
I mean, it seems to be like really unlucky injuries we appear to be getting as well. It's like obviously Lakovic leaving the game on Sunday with what appears to be a wrist problem. No news of whether it's fractured or not. Of course, Bruce Graham has a broken foot. Steve Lee, concussion from the O'Mara hit. Max Perron has a concussion from falling into the boards when he was tripped on the breakaway. So they're not like conditioning problems. They are genuine unlucky hockey injuries, which are a fact of life, but they do seem to have come in a cluster.
Yeah, it's quite frustrating, isn't it? Really, because like you say, they're sometimes niggly injuries, but they're injuries that have happened in play, and like you say, they're not conditioning injuries. But I think a lot of people says that, you go back to the year that we won the Grand Slam, and we were quite fortunate on injuries that year, but maybe we're paying for that price now. So it's disappointing, and you always think, well, what would we be like if we didn't have these injuries? And just fingers crossed one weekend in the remaining of the season that we actually do have no injuries. But I tell you what, I don't think I can see it, to be honest. It kind of just feels that we always carry somebody injured.
Even so, we have injuries. We've got a shorter squad, but you'd like to think there's enough within the squad we are taking to beat Coventry, who of course will be welcoming back Ryan O'Mara after he's banned tomorrow.
The irony. You'd hope so. I mean, it's all right saying these are must-win games that we're facing ahead of us now, but if we want to win the league, they are, and we've got to look at this one as a winnable game. No disrespect to Coventry, they're not going to roll over and let us, tickle their tummies while we take the 2 points. We've got to go and we've got to play and play hard, but we've also got to look at it and think this is a game we can pick 2 points up in.
Aaron, you're heading to the game at the Skydome. Of course, you was there last time, as was I, when it was a penalty shot victory in a quite painful game.
Penalty shot defeat.
Defeat, yeah.
Please
a penalty shot victory for Coventry, I sort of meant to say.
Please don't let history repeat itself.
Yeah, because that was like, please just finish. But
yeah,
but obviously a different Panthers team from there. I mean, I think on the podcast after that we sort of bemoaned the lack of a sniper. We've got that sniper now, who seems to have built up the confidence of those around him, and all the forwards seem to be contributing now. You would expect a slightly different performance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we overly didn't perform that day. It was just a very close game, wasn't it? And that was obviously reflected in the scoreline and the eventual penalty shot defeat. But I think obviously Coventry are a different team now, and the longer that Chuck is spending with them, you can see that he's obviously changing them for the better. I think it's very different playing Coventry at home than it is to playing them in their own barn, and it's they're very tight defensively. So the fact that we've now got Doucette, I think he might just find that pocket which we didn't have last time. So I'm expecting a very tough game because, like we've mentioned, we are short on bodies and that takes its toll. I think once again it all depends on how Mr. Stewart performs. He's been a rock for them at the Skydome sometimes, and I think again it'll be interesting for our power play. And looking on the Panthers website, obviously we might have Cody Wild back, which again adds another string to the bow on our power play. And the specialty teams are going to play a big part in a game like tomorrow night. So I'm hoping that obviously Panthers will prevail, but I think it'll be quite a niggly, tight affair. And as Paul mentioned earlier, if we are going to win the league, this is a game that we've got to win. And if we do win, then it sets us up nicely for the weekend, doesn't it? We don't want to have a dip in performance and in points if we can, help it going into the crucial weekend that we've got coming up.
We're going to look ahead to the double-header against the Belfast Giants at the NIC this weekend, a 7 p.m. face-off on Saturday and a 4 p.m. face-off on Sunday. Joining us to talk about that, as ever, from a view from the bridge, is Patrick Smyth. I got his name right.
You got my name right, but you really called it a view from the bridge.
A view from the bridge, yeah. Oh, I had to get.
How you doing?
I had to get something wrong. It's the way it goes. How are you, mate? All right.
Not too bad. Not too bad. A pleasure to be with you guys.
A pleasure to have you on. So, you could say it's been pretty mixed form for the Giants recently.
You could say that since about September. It's very interesting the way the Belfast Giants have set up this season. The way I look at it personally is the fact that having lifted the championship last season, we were kind of like when Man City won their first Premier League title, and they sort of thought to themselves, well, we're champions, we don't need to change that much, let's go into the next season. And that's kind of the way the Belfast Giants approached this season. We didn't really improve in any way, and it's really coming back to haunt us, and it means there's been absolutely no consistency in any of our results. One day we're turning up brilliantly against the Sheffield Steelers, the next game we're losing to Hull. It's as frustrating as it can be as a Belfast Giants fan, and looking at that game, I'm sure you guys have been through it already, but that game last Friday at the Odyssey Arena, an abject performance by the Belfast Giants. Not to take it away from the Nottingham Panthers, they were as good as Belfast were abject, and it's really come to haunt the Giants. And to take 3 points away from a game which was going from a weekend that was going to be difficult, it just isn't formed to chase down the championship.
Aaron, Giants still in second place though, so they will be a threat to us, especially when you consider that the last time they were at the NIC, it was a 6-3 victory for the Giants.
Was it? I can't remember that. I must have wiped that from my memory.
I remember it. I can take you through it.
No, you're all right, Paddy. You're all right. You know, we don't want to keep the listeners that long. Thank you. Yeah, well, look, I agree with what Paddy's said there from what I've seen of the Giants, and as we talked about, you know, on Friday's game, it's very hit and miss with them, but they have got the performances in them. Like, you know, just look at the Sheffield weekend, for example. But I don't fear the Giants as much as I used to. And I think one thing that just surprises me about the Giants is that you can out-battle them this season, you know, in the dirty areas. And you could never really say that against the Giants. So they'll be looking for revenge, of course. But I think, you know, from a Panthers point of view, we should be going in there, you know, with confidence and looking to get the maximum points.
Paul, double home games are pretty rare, as we know, and especially against the same team. Do you feel that whichever way the game goes on Saturday, it's good to have that chance to exact revenge quickly on the Sunday?
Well, they're always going to, they're always going to have an effect, isn't it? But only in as much as any team loses, they want to get back on the horse and start winning again. So yes, it will, but not any really more than normal.
Paddy, coming into the weekend, how confident are you?
I'm the one who's supposed to answer that question.
Yeah.
I know it's been a while, but come on.
Well, I remember walking into the NIC after a 3-game or 4-game losing streak and bumping in the iron on the way in and saying, I don't think we've got a hope. And we walked out of there with a win. So the way the Belfast Giants have been playing, it really depends what team turns up. There have been a number of players. 2 months ago, I spoke to Steve Thornton, and he said, there are too many passengers on this team. We're two months down the line, and we've still got those passengers. It's something that we're going to talk about on the podcast on the View for Bridge this week, because it's basically hit crisis point, I think, for a number of these players, namely somebody like Kevin Westgarth, who I can't. A lot of people have been looking at Steve Thornton and saying he's signed Kevin Westgarth and what a disaster. You can't point to Steve Thornton because he signed a player directly from the NHL. It's not as if he's he's taking a chance on some CHL grinder and thinking he's going to come in and hopefully he'll fit in. He signed a guy who was scoring goals last season for the Calgary Flames and is now part of the Belfast Giants and now appears to think that he's on holiday. And it's not good enough, and it's crazy to think that this guy, with his CV, is probably the first person that most of the Belfast Giants fans would cut in a heartbeat. Now, the problem you have there is the fact that the Belfast Giants, I agree with Aaron wholeheartedly, they haven't been getting into those dirty areas and they haven't been as dominant. You also have to look at our backline. Players last season who were championship players like Cody Brookwell are a shadow of what they were last season, and we can't work out why. Is that down to a lack of motivation coming from the coach, or is it just down to the fact that last year was a career year? Going into the NIC, I'm going to make this a long answer. Going into the NIC, the way we've been playing, the lack of consistency, I just don't know, Jono. You know as much as any. I love going in there and coming away with the win. Nothing pleases me more, and being smug in bunkers afterwards. But of late,
just in bunkers?
I'm smug in life in general, mate. But but it's a case of. I think you put me off my stride there. It's a case of of late. I've been more downhearted after games than upbeat, and to think that 12 months ago we were coming into the same weekend needing 2 wins and we walked away with the championship. This weekend we come out with 2 losses, then it's good night, Irene.
Paul, does the Giants form surprise you this season, especially when they've kept a huge nucleus of their championship winning squad?
Well, to be honest, yes, but at the same thing, you're talking about the keeping that nucleus, and they've kept it year on year. And you've seen, I think, Paddy touched on it, talking about, Man City. And I remember going back a few years now, Ayr won the league and, pretty much kept the same team the year after, and did, nothing there. So, is it down to the motivation? Is it, they've been there, done that? Is it that they're all getting old together? I don't know, but, this... When Paddy was talking at length earlier about the ups and downs of the team, I did think to myself, who is he actually talking about? Is he talking about Belfast, or is he talking about the Panthers? Because we've been in those situations. We've had a great game one night, and the next night we've been absolutely awful. And now and our home form isn't that great. It's certainly not championship for me, but so. I think we're talking about them, but I think a lot of the things that have been said could easily be pointed at the Panthers as well. And it could be I think it'll be a pretty close weekend. If we get 2 points, I'll be happy.
You could say that. Sorry to jump in. You could say that about the Steelers as well. It's the fact that they've been up and down. They have their bad run, but they could come back into a rich vein of form, and I think it's for that reason. I know we've had discussions on Twitter and the likes about it. It's for that main reason that I actually don't think that anybody in the Earhart Conference is actually going to win the championship this year, regardless of what it would take. A phenomenal run from one team, be it the Sheffield, Nottingham, or Belfast, to go on it, because Braehead can afford to lose a game here and there, because let's be frank, their opponents in the Gardner aren't going to be as tough. So we're going to be Belfast have to play Nottingham 4 times. We have to play the Sheffield Steelers another twice. Their points are just going to be scripted for in the Earhart Conference, while the Clan are just going to go one after the other in the Gardner. And yeah, they'll probably drop a couple of points here or there to Fife and to Dundee, but at this moment in time, I don't think that any of the top teams in the Earhart Conference have the consistency to go from now to the end of the season unbeaten, and that's what they're going to need to do to lift the title.
Aaron, I'll let you respond to that.
Well, I think I've spoke to Paddy a few times on Twitter regarding this particular, Braehead walking it and stuff like that, and I've seen something that Jonathan Fernley's put out, and it pretty much just backs what Paddy's just said, in the sense of somebody is going to have to pretty much go on an unbeaten run from now to the end of the season, which, if we're all going to be honest, you would say that that's not realistically going to happen. But I'm a positive kind of guy, and I kind of, when from a Panthers point of view, whenever people have doubted us, we have responded. And, I think we've got a third, if that, of the season left. I think from a Panthers point of view, they deserve a bit of respect in saying, well, do you know what? You have bounced back, and, you might not have played fantastic, but you have picked up the points. So, why not? Why not give it a go, and we'll see what happens. And if we don't win it, we don't win it, and that's, you can't win everything. That's sport. But until it's mathematically possible that impossible, should I say, then I'll carry on believing. Thank you.
No, listen, I fully agree with you on that, mate. I don't think there's any reason for any team to shut down, because who's to say if the Clan don't go and have an absolute, they just crack and start losing games left, right, and centre. So you obviously have to keep chasing. You can't give up. And of course, there's that conference title to go for.
The what?
Oh yeah.
What's that then?
Are you telling me that if the Nottingham Panthers lift the conference, there's not going to be T-shirts? Please.
Well, they'll probably.
There might be
You're right.
t-shirts.
They will probably be.
They won't be
There
buying
will
them.
be T-shirts. But I certainly won't be buying one. Before we let you go, Paddy, and record your own podcast, as I know you are going to do. Of course, we are getting together this Sunday.
Are we? Just hell no.
I think this is a different show, boys. I think this is.
I think it's time for me and you to leave, Aaron. If I'm honest,
this is news to me. No, I know what you mean, mate.
Yes. Because of course we announced on Twitter earlier today that Cats Whiskers TV and A View from the Bridge. I've done it again.
You really can't say that tonight.
A View from the Bridge podcasts will be getting together on Sunday at the Bunkers Hill Inn in the top room at the Bunkers next to the arena. At 2:00 we'll be doing a pre-game show for about an hour. So join Paddy and myself, Aaron, Andy, Davey, and of course TV's own Neil the Coach Russell, who will be on there. You'll be able to see him in the flesh, get his autograph and everything. I mean, what more could you possibly want?
He's the tanned one.
Yeah. So we will be having some hockey chat and debate and a lot of good fun. So please come along. It will be free to enter, and looking forward to that, Paddy.
Absolutely, mate. It's one of the few occasions at away games that myself, Davey, and Coach are actually over. So it's great to have this opportunity, and we always enjoy chatting with yourselves. So why not do it in front of a whole load of people?
Yeah, great.
So they can shout abuse and throw things.
Wow.
I say people. It's probably just going to be Paul, isn't it? Or are you just going to be down? You're going to be downstairs, aren't you, mate?
I don't know. I didn't get mentioned. First I've heard of it.
Forgotten already.
Yeah. And I think on that note, we'll leave it. Paddy, thanks very much for joining us, mate.
Pleasure, mate.
And we shall leave it there for another podcast. I want to say thank you very much to Mr. Paul Balm for coming out in retirement to join us.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'm not going to be like Frank Sinatra. I won't keep doing this. And I'm going to let Andy out of the basement now, so you can have him back next week.
Great stuff. Yeah, we need it for Sunday as well.
Yeah, it's been fun being on.
Great, thanks. Appreciate you coming on, Mr. Lord. Thank you very much as always.
It's an absolute pleasure, Mr. Dean Martin. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the original Rat Pack all back together. Thank you very much, guys. Don't forget, on Sunday we'll be joining with our friends from the A View from the Bridge podcast to produce a joint show at the Bunkers Hill Inn on Sunday afternoon. We'll be starting at 2:00 in the top room. Entry is free, plenty of hockey, debate, chat and a few good laughs as well, I can imagine. So please come along and join us for our first live pre-game show. Hopefully we'll see how it goes, and you never know, there might be a few more. But as for this podcast, thank you ever so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.